Mix different materials and techniques for unexpected results today on Beads, Baubles and Jewels.
Beads, Baubles and Jewels has been brought to you in part by Beading Daily, your jewelry making resource for how-to projects, books, magazines, DVDs, events, and online learning. BeadingDaily.com. Beadalon, a manufacturer of flexible bead stringing wires, memory wire, artistic wire, stringing materials, innovative findings, and tools to help you fashion your own jewelry. Beadalon.com. Dreamtime Creations, an online supplier of crystals, findings, and jewelry making supplies since 1989. DreamtimeCreations.com. Halcraft, jewelry component manufacturer. Halcraft.com.
It can be tempting to use the same materials together all the time and stick with tried and true combinations. Today on Beads, Baubles and Jewels, we encourage you to mix and match your materials and techniques to create some unexpected results. To help us along, Melinda Barta is back to make circular peyote stitch buttons for leather cord from her book, Mastering Peyote Stitch. Then, Molly Schaller is back to create a dramatic look with 3 mix and match necklaces. Next, add leather, ribbon, and feathers to cord ends for a true mix and match of materials. And finally, Jackie Truty is back to inlay silver into copper to create eye-catching pendants. Let's mix and match. I'm here with beadwork editor and author Melinda Barta. Melinda, you have a great idea for combining these unexpected materials. I love it.
Thank you. Yep, peyote stitch buttons are really, really fun to make, and the technique is really simple. Essentially, you just make 2 flat circular peyote discs, and then you join them along the outside edge, and you have a button.
Cool. Well, let's take a look at this bracelet because I love the way that you combine the button and the slider, and you're going to show us how to make these, right?
Yep, first we'll start off with the button, and then I'll show you how making just one simple variation to the stitch makes an opening, which will allow you to string the sliders onto leather or any other kind of stringing material.
Super fun, and a great way to bring beadwork into other kinds of projects.
Yep.
Good. Well, how do you get started?
Okay. For round 1, we'll begin by making a circle of 5 beads. And then for round 2, we'll work circular peyote stitch with 1 bead in each stitch. So if you look at my sample here, round 1 is the green beads, and I'm working these samples in size 8s. But
that makes it easy to see.
Yes, much easier. But in the other pieces I make, I prefer to work in 11s.
But you can really do this stitch with any size, right?
You could. You definitely could.
And peyote is such a great beginner one, too. I love seeing how you can transform it into so many different things like this.
Yeah, it's so versatile. And so here I'll take the last stitch of round 2, just pick up 1 red bead, pass through the next green bead, and then at the end of each round you always have to remember to step up, which means...
Okay, so you'll pass through that last bead.
Exactly, so that we're ready to begin round 3.
Is it the first bead of the first round?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, so coming over here to this illustration, we're going to work round 3 with 2 beads in each stitch. And then in round 4, we'll work 1 bead in each stitch. And you'll be putting a bead between every bead of the previous round. So you'll often hear this referred to as splitting the pairs. So 1 bead is splitting the pair of the round 3 beads. And then in round 5, we'll work 1 bead in each stitch, just like we did for round 4.
And you can really see it on your color sample there.
Yes, so here, the purple beads are round 3, again 2 beads in each stitch, and this is an increase. And so the point of it is to keep the work flat. And then round 4 is with the blue beads, and round 5 is with our red beads. Now we just have 2 more rounds to work. So coming back to this illustration, Round 6 will have 2 beads in each stitch, and round 7 will have 1 bead in each stitch. But notice this is different. We're not splitting the pairs like we did before. We're treating the pair of beads from round 6 as if they are 1 bead. And so that completes one side of the button.
Okay.
When you work the second side, you're going to work just rounds 1 through 6, not rounds 1 through 7. And so what that allows us to do is to zip the two together. So here you can see this red sample is made with 7 rounds, but the blue sample is just with 6 rounds. So when we fold the pieces together, and I think this is the best part of making the buttons, it makes working the rounds all worth it because it's so fun to see how they come together. So you're going to stitch through the pair of beads from round 6, then the single bead from round 7, the pair of beads from round 6, and the single bead of round 7. And
Oh, right, so you really are just zipping it up.
Yep, so you're going to do this all the way around the edge. And a great tip is if you want to double the thread at this point to make sure that outside edge is really strong, you can just pull back on the tail thread till it extends beyond the point.
And then you can hold it. Right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And so now, as I would continue to stitch around, that thread is twice as strong.
Oh, that's a great tip.
Okay, so now I'll show you the easy variation to make these sliders.
Okay.
So let's look at this illustration here. In round 7, we're going to work just 4 beads. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and now we're going to work a decrease. And to do that, you simply just skip a section. So we're not going to add a bead here. Instead, we're going to weave through beads of the previous rounds so we can exit that next pair. Then we work 4 more, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then follow the thread path to work that other decrease.
Okay.
And
that'll make the space for your cord to pass through.
Exactly.
Right? Okay.
So here on the sample, here are the 4 red beads of round 7. Then we skipped a spot for the decrease, and then 4 more.
Okay, so then when you stitch these together, it's just like you did on the other piece where you're zipping it, basically.
Exactly. You're just going to work through the beads of that decrease. Just follow that previous thread path as you're zipping them together.
Okay.
And the result is here's a larger piece shown in the 8ths. There's an opening. And if you have trouble finding the opening,
You can just use your flat noses.
yep, just really gently. And then you can get your stringing material right through there.
Great, and you made it extra durable because you had that second thread in there.
Exactly.
Now this is an example of what it would look like, the same thing, but with smaller beads.
Right, and with circular peyote stitch, you can just continue working more increases and more increases to keep the work flat. And you can make these as large or as small as you want.
Okay, that's a great tip. And also you used the star pattern on this one.
That's right. With circular peyote stitch, you can just kind of map out where your beads are going to lay and then change the colors accordingly to make different patterns. And this one also has some great embellishments. I just did little picots along the outside edge.
I see that. And this one too. And on this one you layered up the top and did some embellishing there. So you could even use it as a foundation structure.
That's right.
Cool. And let's take a look at the green necklace or bracelet here too, because this is, I love the way that you combine the metallic and the matte. That's great.
Thanks, yeah, and they're reversible. So you can...
Oh, you could do one color on one and one on the other,
Yeah.
and then you can see how it slides on the cord. These are just beautiful. What a great way to work beadwork into your jewelry. Thank you, Melinda. This has been really great. And we will be right back. I'm here with designer Molly Schaller with Halcraft, and we've been talking about how to mix and match your materials. Take a look at this gorgeous necklace she made. I love this, Molly.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, you can really tell that you spent a lot of time choosing your components so that they would look good together, even though they're all so different. Can you tell us a little bit about them?
Well, actually, the best place to start, I think, when you're mixing components is to start with your favorites. Pick out a couple of your favorites.
That's a good
and
tip.
then figure out, like which work well together. And then just start arranging them on a board. That's how this necklace started out, actually. And so this chain right here, the marquee kind of shaped chain, that was a favorite of mine. And then the diamond shaped beads were a favorite. And I loved this pendant.
That's a really beautiful component. And you made these so that you could wear them separately, or you can mix and match them together too.
Yeah, they're really, really versatile. And essentially, it's not a hard necklace to make, it's pretty easy.
So it's just layering the different elements together. Well, show us how you get started.
Okay, well, I'll start with what I consider something that everybody's familiar with, which is stringing. And so the center necklace is actually simply strung beads. And instead of using, this component was actually meant to be used in a vertical fashion, but I liked it horizontal to kind of coordinate with these shapes here. So I just went ahead though and I looped it through and crimped it together after I strung the beads. They're just alternating beads.
And I noticed you're using copper beading wire too. That's a nice thing you can do to match the components with your wire.
Definitely. It's something that I think really ties a design together and makes it look more professional if the wire matches the components you're using. And I actually am gonna just flatten this crimp here. And then you do the same on the other end after you trimmed off your little cord here. And you could add your jump rings and your clasps.
Super easy.
Yeah, just finish that up, flatten a couple more crimps. And so your first necklace would be finished at that point. And you could just wear that by itself. It's really pretty. And it's pretty, although it's muted tones, it's a statement necklace because it's got large beads.
Definitely makes a statement.
So the next necklace I wanted to show you how to make is actually primarily chain. And the reason it works well with the others is I think because that's kind of, each necklace has its theme. The first one was kind of large beads. This one's theme is chain. And so what I did was I chose these great beaded beads that you can buy already done, which is kind of nice to cut a couple corners. And I went ahead and I put them onto an eye pin. And sometimes with the beaded beads, the holes between the beads are kind of large, so I added a couple of really small rondelles that really, they blend in and they kind of like deal with that contrast. Yeah, with the color too. So I went ahead and I made a, a regular old basic loop like you would with a lot of different things. And then I used this component to just attach the different types of chain together. So I've done it already on the other side, but here's what you would do on this side. And I went ahead and used like various types of chains really add a lot to a design too. So this one is a finer chain. This one's a little bit thicker. And I really like to add some drops. These were another one of my favorites. I love this kind of iridescent, sparkling briolette shape.
Yeah, that flat briolette is so pretty. I like those too.
And they lay really well next to your skin, and it's just kind of nice. But to use them, and you can string them basically, but you can also use an eye pin and make a wrapped loop, which gives them a little more, they dangle better, they'll catch more light. So I often do that. And so what I do is I just kind of fold the wire so that it follows the contour of the bead.
Okay.
Make a little bend in the top so that it looks a little bit like a coat hanger.
Yeah.
Fold it over, and then I wrap around. And they're also a nice shape to hold when you're wrapping around because they give you a nice place to put your fingers and hold on. So you can just kind of wrap around like that until you've got 3 for this project, because I like to have groups of 3.
Yeah, odd numbers are always more interesting than even.
So then what you can do is I chose like some varying types of chain. And just because sometimes I don't like to be super precise about the length of things, especially if it's dangling, but I do like to have them at different levels. So I don't want both of the briolettes to hang right next to each other.
Yeah.
I'll just kind of pick up one of the loops and that's not the center of the chain and kind of see how that works and see, that looks pretty good.
That works well with the asymmetrical look too.
Yeah, because they're going to hang off to just one side.
And those briolette elements are also in your third necklace.
They are. So we can go ahead and you just attach that like that. The third necklace uses chain too, but it's a different type of chain. This is a kind of a marquee chain. And it comes like this with these little link I don't know, link connectors. Yeah. They're shaped like staples is kind of why I used them there. But I decided that because I wanted to hang the briolettes from in between each one, it really wouldn't work to hang them off of that staple.
Yeah.
So I deconstructed the whole chain.
Mix and match, that's what it's all about.
Exactly. And I went ahead and I used the staple links and I just reused them, adding some, I don't know if it's gonna let me do it.
Oh, that's okay.
But
Yeah,
I used some jump rings in between, and that gives me a nice flat spot from which to hang these really pretty little briolets that pop in. You can just open the links on these like you would open a, even though they're wrapped, you can still open up.
Well, let's take a look at the finished piece again so that we can see the way you layered all these different elements together. This is so pretty, Molly, and of course you could do it in other colorways too. Mm-hmm. Really nice.
Yeah, it's fun to use some of your favorites. And just
Definitely.
kind of work off of that.
Okay, well, we will be right back. Today's jewelry making workshop is about adding cord ends to leather and even feathers so that you can really mix and match your materials. So let me show you some of the different cord ends that are available and how to use them. These are the round type that you're going to use on round leather cord or rubber tubing, anything that is completely round. And these are called spring cord ends. They have a coiled piece of wire with a loop at the end. And there are also tube cord ends that are just smooth. So you'll choose which one that you want to use based on the look that you're going for. And the way that the coil ends work is you place it onto your leather cord. Of course, you want to be sure that you choose a diameter of cord that works well for the ends that you have, or vice versa. Then you're going to use your chain nose pliers. And a little tip for fastening these is to use your pliers to just squeeze the very end of it in, and then see how it's just a little bit hanging over right there? Then I'll come back with the pliers and squeeze it again. So you can do that on the first couple of coils, loops on the coil. That will make it really nice and tight. If you wanted to be absolutely secure too, you could add a drop of glue or epoxy there. With these tube ends, you are going to use industrial strength adhesive or epoxy to attach them. Now these are called C-crimp ends. You'll often see them for ribbon, but they also work for other materials like suede lacing. Anything that's flat you can put inside there. So I'm going to show you how you use it with mesh. And this is a special kind of ribbon that is made from wire. So you can pull it apart like this. It's made from a tube. You can also straighten it out. But to fasten the ends, what you do is kind of fold the corners in a little bit, and you can even fold it over if you want to, so that it gives you a nice surface to attach the cord into, like that. And then you'll put the end right on and use your chain nose pliers. I squeeze it a little bit with my fingers first, just give it a pinch there, and then you can finish it up by using your chain nose or flat nose pliers and make it really nice and flat and secure there. If you have a little bit hanging out here, you can trim it off, or you can use your pliers to press it back in. Now for feathers, you're going to use a fold-over cord end. And these come in different styles. You'll want to choose a width that works for the material that you're putting inside, whether that's suede cord or feathers. And then you can use your chain nose pliers to fold the ends over. So you'll press the feather into the cord end, and then press the sides down with your chain nose pliers, like that, and you put one flap over, and when it's fastened down, then you'll do the other one, like that, and you use your chain noses. Same thing with suede cord. It's really easy to attach your clasp, then you can just use a jump ring here, or you can do a little bit of wire wrapping. So take a look at the brown necklace here. You can see at the end I added the C-crimp cord end, and I used a jump ring to attach a length of chain to the center of the necklace. Now that same finding will work to attach the clasp at the back of the necklace. Now on the other necklace with the amber beads in front, I used the spring coil cord ends, and that's a round style, of course, that I showed you how to fasten, but notice that I used stringing wire to string those beads, because sometimes you have beads that have smaller holes and they don't fit onto the leather cord. That's an easy way to fix that problem. This necklace uses cord ends that you glue onto the end. I have an extension chain in my clasp. And then on the feather necklace, you can see the eye crimp is hidden behind, and you can just put it behind to make your own trendy pendants and necklaces. So these are some tips for using cord ends in your designs. Hi I'm here with art clay silver expert Jackie Truty. Welcome, Jackie.
Thank you. Nice being here.
Great to have you. And I love these necklaces and earrings that you have to show us.
This is a new technique that melds silver and copper clay together in one firing. So
beautiful.
and this is called inlay. So you're actually taking either silver or copper and making a stamp and then putting the other metal into it and firing it.
Oh wow, well show us how to get started.
Okay, so you just have to have some basic supplies. I have some slats so I know how thick to roll it, and release always with silver clay and copper clay so that you don't get your fingers all sticky. And just a couple of basic tools and some water. So what we're gonna do is make a copper pendant with some silver inlay. So the first thing I'm going to do is get my copper clay. And the copper clay is maybe 15 grams of copper. It depends on how big your stamp is and how big you want the pendant. You want to make sure that you keep it moist because it's got to be nice and soft to put your stamp into. So I've got this here all nice and soft. I'm going to make a ball. I'm going to press it and then get my roller and roll it out. I don't want to roll it too thin because I'm going to be stamping it. And if you stamp it too thinly, then it'll crack when you fire it on the bottom. So this is a nice thickness here. When you use a stamp, anytime you press anything into clay, you want to make sure that you lubricate it either with olive oil or some other kind of release, hand cream, things like that.
And you're using a beautiful stamp. It has really well-defined edges.
Well-defined. It has to be small. It can't be really large because then you won't see it. And you're going to be putting silver into the inlay. So I'm going to press it fairly firmly, nice and evenly, I hope.
So that just gives you the outline for the silver?
It gives you the outline for the silver. There we go, nice and deep. If you want to hang it, then of course you've got to put a hole in it. And to do that, I just have a straw. It's a cocktail stirrer or a coffee stirrer. And I'm going to put the hole up at the top, pull it up. If it doesn't come out, you can pick it out when it's dry. There we go. And now it's actually ready to dry. And you need to dry this either by leaving it out for 24 hours or putting it on a mug warmer or using a hair dryer or dehydrate or something like that.
So just make sure that it's really nice and dry.
It's got to be really, really dry and flat. So you put that away. And once it's dry, you bring it out. And here you can see I used a different stamp and I actually put the hole up at the top. And here's the beginning of putting the silver in it. And to put the silver in it, you don't want to be really fancy. You want to make sure that your silver is nice and soft. And to make it soft enough to actually push it into the inlay, you have to add a couple of drops of water. So I have a piece of plastic here, and I'm going to actually get a little pipette and mush it together because you have to actually press it in. And if it's too hard, it won't go to the bottom of the design.
Okay.
So if you have to, you can just keep adding water until it's soft enough. And then I use one of these steel tools so that it won't get in the cracks if it's wood or anything like that. And you're going to hold it carefully and then push the silver into the design.
All right, so you would just want to cover the whole.
You cover the whole
design.
thing, and you don't want to be really neat about it. You just want to make sure the entire design is covered so that you can't see it through the silver. Once you have that, you put it to dry, let it dry thoroughly, and then when it comes out, you're going to use sandpapers to sand it all the way down. You can use a file first. But what will happen from this part to this is that the design will come up again, but you'll see the silver inlaid into the copper.
Oh yeah, it looks great.
So once it's like that, it's ready to fire.
All right, and then do you put it in the kiln?
You put it in a kiln. This cannot be torch fired because you've got two metals together.
All right, so that's a great tip. Anytime you're doing the copper and silver
together, it has to be kiln fired. So again, what you're going to do is put it on an open shelf first, and you have to put it in the kiln first open like this for at 842 degrees. And what will happen is the binder will burn out of your silver and the copper will go black. And it really has to look like this. If it has brown in it at all, it's not done enough. So 842 degrees, then you pull it out right away and let it sit until your kiln cools down to room temperature. Then the magic pot. And this pot it's a low pot and it has activated coconut carbon in it. And the coconut carbon, what that will do is absorb all the oxygen inside of here so that the copper doesn't get fire scale on it. So you'll put your piece that looks like this in the carbon. Then you just take some more and cover it up. You don't want to cover it too deep because the silver still has to sinter. So you just want to cover it up, maybe with a 1/2 inch, no more than that. And then you put it in the kiln, cover it up, put it in the kiln at 1400 degrees for 4 hours. And you just set it. Almost all the kilns that we use are electronically programmed, so you don't have to stand there.
Right.
After 4 hours, you let it cool down, you open it up, and out of the carbon comes this. And you can see now that the copper is copper colored. The silver is now inlaid in there, and it's solid. So when you take your stainless steel brush and brush it, and you can use sandpaper.
Wow.
And you can polish this up to look like the pieces that are over there.
And did you burnish them at all or do any other finishing
Well,
techniques?
the one on the earrings that are on the stand, I actually just brushed them real well and I didn't do any polishing at all with them. The one on the far end was really fairly polished. So you can see you could do a lot with it.
Oh, this is a beautiful technique. Thank you, Jackie.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching. Remember that lots of other mix and match techniques are featured on our website from this series and from past episodes. Join us next time as we look at some new dimensions in jewelry making.
Instructions for today's projects, plus other ideas, techniques, and tutorials are available on the web at beadsbaublesandjewels.com. This is show 1811. If you enjoyed today's show and want to see more projects and great guests, download individual episodes for $2.99 each or order a complete DVD set of the entire Beads, Baubles and Jewels Series 1800 for $29.95 plus shipping and handling at beadsbaublesandjewels.com. Don't miss a single episode. Beads, Baubles and Jewels has been brought to you in part by Beading Daily, your jewelry making resource for how-to projects, books, magazines, DVDs, events, and online learning. BeadingDaily.com. Beadalon, a manufacturer of flexible bead stringing wires, memory wire, artistic wire, stringing materials, innovative findings, and tools to help you fashion your own jewelry. Beadalon.com. Dreamtime Creations, an online supplier of crystals, findings, and jewelry making supplies since 1989. Dreamtimecreations.com. Halcraft, jewelry component manufacturer. Halcraft.com.